Let's look at an example. Poppy plc operates a computer supply and maintenance business and has a year end of 31st December. Now immediately here we're saying that the company is doing two things, aren't they? They're supplying computers and they're providing maintenance. So it's a sale of goods and the sale of services. On the 1st of November 2019, so that's what, 10 months of the way through the year with 2 months left. So 1st of November 2019, Poppy supplies hardware and a maintenance contract to a customer. The maintenance contract is for 2 years and Poppy is giving this away for free, or at least that's what she's selling. She's telling the customer that it's being given away for free. The normal value of this would be $12,000 per year, which is what, $24,000. All Poppy is telling her customer is that the total value of the sale is $40,000, and the customer doesn't really know how much they're paying for the computer hardware and the maintenance. They think they're paying $40,000 for the hardware and nothing for the maintenance. That's what they are under the impression is actually happening. We've got to decide how much revenue is actually going to be recorded and recognised in the first year, which is only the 2 months, isn't it, to the end of December. Now, let's assume here, it doesn't say so, but let's assume that Poppy charges $40,000 up front straight away. So all of the $40,000 is actually paid on the 1st of November 2019. Now, it's very, very unlikely that we're going to recognise all of that $40,000 in the first 2 months. And indeed, the revenue to be included in the year to the 31st of December here is actually going to end up being $18,000, not 40, despite the fact that 40,000 is received up front. Let's see why. Let's go through the process. We go through the process of the 5-step approach and applying the 5 steps. Is there a contract to supply? Yes, there is a contract to supply. A contractual agreement has been signed. Then we look at the number of obligations. Well, there are 2 things, aren't there? There's the computer hardware and there's the maintenance agreement. So there are 2 things being supplied. What's the total contract value? $40,000. It's stated in the contract. It's stated in the question. We then need to split the price across the 2 performance obligations, the 2 things that are being provided. And we split using the normal going rate, market rate values. We don't go, it's 40 for the hardware and nothing for the maintenance because Poppy says it's free. We say the maintenance is an arm's length market value of $12,000 per year, so $24,000 in total. So $24,000 for the maintenance contract and $16,000 for the hardware. Think about when the hardware is being sold on the 1st of November 19. Think about when the maintenance contract is being sold over 24 months, which is $1,000 a month, isn't it? So when we come down to allocating the amount and actually deciding how much revenue is going to get recognised, we're going to say all of the hardware revenue, which is $16,000, and 2/24 of the maintenance contract revenue, which is $2,000, isn't it? $24,000 for 2 years. $1,000 a month. So the amount that will be recognised in year 1 is $18,000. So let's think about this for a minute. Poppy has actually received $40,000. We're assuming that all the $40,000 is received up front, but she's only recorded $18,000 as her revenue, in accordance with the 5-step approach that we can see there. There is a contract. There are 2 things. The total price is 40. The split is 24/16. The amount of revenue being recognised is 18. So the actual revenue split is 18 this year and 22 later. Looking at the double entry, don't forget the revenue double entry is for $18,000. That has been received into the bank, so we debit the cash bank and we credit revenue. But we've actually received extra, haven't we? Any income received too early, and the income received too early here is $22,000, total of 40. Now we're not going to give that back. We're going to keep it and say thank you very much. So the debit side of the entry is going to be the same as the revenue side of the entry, the revenue debit, which is into the cash bank account. The credit side of the entry is not to revenue though. We've received this income too early. We credit it to deferred income. Now, deferred income actually goes on the statement of financial position as a liability. It's not a liability because we owe the money back. It's a liability because we owe the service. So we're acknowledging that we owe the service by recording the 22,000 as a liability. And in actual fact, that liability will be split between 1 year and more than 1 year, because some of it is actually relating to the third period here. So that's what we do this year. We record the cash coming in and we record the revenue of 18. We record the other cash coming in and we defer the income. We push it forward into following periods, 22,000. In the next period, $12,000 worth of revenue needs to be recorded because it's service income and it's $1,000 a month, isn't it? 24,000 for 2 years overall. So we're not going to receive any more cash. All we do is we take the 12,000 out of deferred income. So there won't be 12,000 in there anymore. It was 22, wasn't it? So it's going to go down to 10. So we're going to debit the deferred income with 12,000 and we're going to release it to revenue. Now that actually means that 10,000 is left in deferred income and that gets released to revenue in the following accounting period. Just one more thing to say about this before we move on. It would be possible that companies kind of use this to manipulate, wouldn't it? They'd say, well, let's release a certain amount of revenue. We don't want to release too much here because the profit's not what we want it to be or anything. Well, what this process does is it kind of stops companies from doing that. Okay, it stops them from pushing revenue to and from and into and out of particular accounting periods just because they feel like it. The reason that we're doing this here, the reason that we're deferring income of 22,000 from the first year and we're still deferring income of 10,000 at the end of the second year is because it's the right thing to do. It gives a true and fair view of what has actually happened. Okay, let's have a look at another example of revenue recognition with a couple of extra bits in that we've talked about in theory but we've not seen in an actual example. Oliver plc operates a computer supply and maintenance business and has a year end of 31st of December. On the first day of 2020, Oliver sells computer equipment and a 2-year service agreement to another company for $1.2 million in cash that is received on the 1st of January 2020. So it's received on the first day of the year. The normal selling prices are $1 million for the equipment and $0.5 million, so $500,000 for the service agreement, which is $250,000 per year. If the computer equipment fails in the first year, then Oliver will have to reduce the overall price of the entire agreement to 1 million from 1.2 million. Past history suggests that the equipment is very reliable, so this will not happen. Oliver wants to know how much revenue to recognise in year 1. Okay, so let's have a think about this. The normal selling price in total is $1.5 million. The actual selling price, the cash that we're going to receive, is $1.2 million, so we're giving a discount. 1.2 divided by 1.5 is 80%, so we're offering a 20% discount here. If we're offering a 20% discount, what IFRS 15 says is that discount has to be allocated across all of the things that we're doing, the services that we're providing. Put it in accountancy speak, allocate the discount across the performance obligations. So if it's an 80% discount as a whole, that is going to be 80% over the two things that we're doing. The variable consideration here, which is the if we don't do a good job, if the computer equipment doesn't work, then we will have to charge less. The variable consideration here is going to be ignored because, in accordance with IFRS 15, it's not probable that it will happen. It tells us, doesn't it? Past history suggests that this computer equipment doesn't fail. Therefore, it is very unlikely. Therefore, we ignore it. So we are going to have to allocate the discount. We are not going to account for the variable consideration. As we said briefly on the previous slide, the discount is going to apply to both bits. We don't say we're going to give an 80% discount on just the equipment or just the service arrangement. It's 80% discount on both. So that means the normal price for the equipment would be $1 million. 80% of that is 800,000. The normal selling price for the service agreement, 250,000 a year, would be 500,000 in total. 80% of that is 400,000. Total revenue 1.2 million. So we've ignored the variable revenue, which is correct, and we've allocated the discount so we know how much of the 1.2 million applies for the equipment and for the actual service agreement. Of that 1.2 million, remember this is all received up front, isn't it? It's all received on the first day of January 2020. Of that 1.2 million total revenue, 200,000 of it is going to get deferred. The 200,000 that's going to get deferred is half of the 400,000 service agreement revenue. Remember, the service agreement revenue covers a 2-year period. So half of it is going to go in our year, and half of it is going to get pushed into the next year, which will be the year to December 2021. The 800,000, well, none of that's going to get deferred, is it? That's all going to get recognised when the computer equipment changes hands, which is the first day of January. Looking at the double entry. Initially, we receive, according to the question, tells us $1.2 million worth of revenue is received up front. So the debit side of the entry is going to be cash bank. We're going to debit our bank balance with 1.2 million. Credit side of the entry is actually going to be split, isn't it? Because of what we said on the bottom of the previous slide. $1 million is going to get credited to revenue this year. The $0.2 million, the 200,000, that is going to get pushed into the next year because that is service revenue that shouldn't be recognised this year. It's been received in advance. Now remember why we're doing that. Deferred income is a liability. We're not going to pay it back, but we owe the service. That's why we're recording it as a liability. So the double entry to record in the first place is going to be credit the revenue with $1 million, credit deferred income with $0.2 million, debit cash bank with $1.2 million. And as you can see right at the bottom, any income received too early, which is the case with the $0.2 million, is deferred. Now that $0.2 million is going to help with our cash flow, but it's not going to help with our profit, not this year anyway, because it's recognised next year. What then happens next year is we do what's called releasing the deferred income. So the deferred income liability that we've got, which is a credit, is now going to get debited. Therefore it disappears. Therefore we do not have an SFP deferred income amount anymore. So we debit the deferred income 0.2 million, thus clearing it out. And we credit revenue with 0.2 million. Therefore, we're spreading across the appropriate periods. The plan was to start with the 5-step approach in summary, which we've looked at. Then we've looked at the more detail. And then we've looked at the actual example. So that concludes our discussion of IFRS 15.